All right, sit down. And if you're sitting, lay down. If you're laying, stand up. Pay attention. Hey, my country just invaded another country. Again, it's cool because if I don't pay my taxes, they'll throw me in jail or kill me. So that's fun. That's fun and great. Now I'm going to get this out up front. At no point in this video will I be defending Maduro. No one's doing that. This video is sort of just a look at what the hell is happening and how reality just is. A couple of nights ago, I woke up in the middle of the night, as I usually do. I've got trouble sleeping, and I checked my phone, and that was a mistake because, we just took another country's leader out of it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, somehow the United States of America has conducted an operation in Venezuela that extracted Maduro, their leader. I think the terms that most people seem to be coalescing around are either kidnapping or arresting, depending on your view of the role of the United States on the global stage. Everything I'm about to talk about is all true at the same time. Please hold that close, because this is a situation, like every situation, that does not have a clear-cut one way to look at it. And it certainly is not an example of good guy versus bad guy, and I'll touch more on that later. First thing, we are almost definitely looking at the start of another Iraq or Afghanistan situation. The US just invaded and bombed another country and took their leader out, and now don't really seem to have a plan. The day after the operation, Trump went on TV and said that the United States would run Venezuela until such a time comes that they can get the new government together. Which is exactly what happened in Iraq. Now, are there key differences between that and this? Yes, of course. And also, there's key differences between everything and everything. But this is just straight up CIA playbook shit. They've already detailed the CIA's operations in this. You can just go read about it. Like, Reuters published a whole report about the inside of this operation and how the CIA was involved. They're experts at this. This playbook is what they do. They're like, hey, here's a place that's bad, right? Look how unhappy the citizens are. They've got a leader that's a dictator and they're bad. We're gonna be the heroes. When they frame it that way, it gives them the option to call anyone who opposes that a supporter of that violent dictator. Oh, you don't like what the US just did? You must want the Venezuelan people to suffer, right? Like that reductive approach, it works because there's just like a lot of people who won't think past that. That's what we need to do here. That's what we're doing right now. Anyway, yeah, the reasoning for why we did this is not there. It was originally, ostensibly, according to the government, because drugs. We've been bombing drug boats in the Caribbean, in the Pacific. We've killed over 100 people through those operations. And now it's not about that, I guess. I mean, it kind of is, sort of. Like, the US government has charged Maduro and his wife with charges about drug stuff. Okay, apparently that means we can now just yoink world leaders. Which, I want to be clear. I'm not going to make the argument that this was illegal. Everything this administration does is illegal. So we go in on basically no real pretense. Like the drug story was shitty at best and no one was really paying attention. And then there was the oil thing. We've been blockading with oil, and then it turns out, oh yeah, it was about the oil. We're going to get oil companies up in there. And the plan now is run Venezuela until the oil companies can get in and rebuild their infrastructure to better benefit the Venezuelan people. But that means that like US oil companies are supposed to come in and build up Venezuela just out of the goodness of their hearts. It's not about liberating Venezuela. And we'll get to more on that. But I want to get to the second main point here, which is that it's perfectly okay for Venezuelan people to be elated about this. I am not Venezuelan. I only know a handful of folks who are Venezuelan, like first generation. I know the situation there has been very bad. Very, 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 very bad. Maduro and his regime have been worsening conditions for everyone in Venezuela except for their buddies for a very long time now. Venezuela sits atop massive oil reserves, and essentially his regime has just been taking that money, and enriching themselves while doing just enough to prevent a full-on revolt. But this has caused a surge of refugees out of Venezuela, and it's genuinely awful. It makes complete sense that the guy is gone and people are now happy. That relief, that celebration, that is valid, and it's not diminished by the other details of this situation. It is, again, one whole part of a extremely multifaceted situation. Now, I will say, the rhetoric of Venezuelans are happy, so you can't be against this, is bullshit. That's nothing. Venezuelans are happy, so you can't be against this, just takes the entire lives of Venezuelan people and turns that into a moral cudgel that doesn't even really make sense. You can't take your own interpretation of all of their emotions, of a person whose life you're not living, and use that to tell someone else that they're wrong because of those emotions. Especially when, again, there's just like so many different angles here. There are some things that are wrong, there are some things that are very wrong, and there's some things that are just confusing as hell. And it also makes total sense that there's a lot of confusion, especially among Venezuelan populations. From what I can tell, and I will not speak for them, from what I can tell, it seems to be a pretty healthy mix of elation about Maduro getting comeuppance and concern about what comes next. I'm not going to say how they should feel because there's a lot of emotions already. I don't think we need more prescriptions. But let's go on to, again, Maduro being bad doesn't make it just universally okay. Maduro is bad. There are many other bad world leaders. Some are far worse. That is not an argument for doing what we did. So you've got a whole world filled with shitty leaders that could just be plucked out of their countries. Yeah, okay, how do we pick who we do that to? Because we've got Maduro, who's bad because drugs, but Honduras just saw their leader get pardoned for drug crimes by Donald Trump also. So like, it's obviously not about that, and it's obviously about the oil, and it's more specifically obviously about international trade in oil markets. The entirety of the US dollar's stability is essentially baked in to oil. Venezuela has some of the largest proven oil reserves in the world, and we're working exclusively with Russia, China, and other BRICS nations. BRICS is a trade group that's essentially trying to do trade without having to deal with the dollar. They're trying to go around the US in global trade. That threatens the US dollar's stability because the US holds its position in the world essentially by not being able to go around them for trade because of how synonymous the dollar is with oil. So this move was really just a strategic geopolitical move to get a hold of more oil reserves, to block out BRICS nations from having a relatively easy channel that was a thorn in the US's side. That's why you'll see people refer to Russia and China as a part of this, because they were major buyers of oil from Venezuela. And then beyond oil, it's just like Marco Rubio's wet dream to conquer Venezuela, and more specifically Cuba. There are just people in the Trump administration that just want to do regime change for funsies. Like it's their hobby. So here is the situation. There are no good guys. A good thing happened for a bunch of people as a side effect of a bunch of pieces of shit trying to move pieces around a board. They basically just like took some of that shit and scraped it away. And now people can be like, yay, I don't have to deal with that piece of shit anymore. But there's still pieces of shit moving in every other direction. I'm gonna move on from shit chess as a metaphor. The point I'm trying to make here is push back strongly on anyone who tries to take this situation and just boil it down to one little point and try to get you with that. During my lifetime, most of the live conflict that's like this has been happening in West Asia, but now it's happening in South America. And it's been a while. We used to do it a lot there, like a lot. But it's been since like, I don't know, Panama, like 1989, since there was a major thing, like this hot of an operation. So the US is essentially returning to form of like pre-Cold War territorial control. That's the only thing I can really surmise from this. And I don't like that. That's not my politics. And so you can be against what the US just did, and also not like Maduro and think he's a piece of shit and be happy that he's gone and be happy for the people of Venezuela. while also being concerned about what comes next, because we're essentially watching as this administration just does this thing with no real plan. At this point, there's just nothing about what comes next. There's nothing to draw upon here to be like, oh yeah, here's the plan as laid out by anyone. The White House is being vague, but also specific about oil, but also vague about everything else. They're just making random claims like a foreign invasion and occupation of a nation won't cost us money because oil. While also like implied in that is like, oh, we have a right to extract their oil, which like they try to spin this story about how Venezuela used to be good with the US with oil and then they stopped doing that. And so they owe us, which is absurd. Long story short, we in this. This is just happening now. Personally, I hope that the outcome is that everything goes great and the Venezuelan government decides to dissolve itself and hold new elections and the US fucks off. And it's just like, good job, y'all. And now we're going to establish like reciprocal trade stuff. I don't think that's gonna happen. Reciprocal? What did I just say? Whatever. But for now, all we can do is kind of like see what the fuck happens while demanding that our leaders fucking do anything ever. But I'm not gonna hold my breath on that front. Personally. Thanks for bearing with me through that. I kind of meandered through everything, but that's just sort of the download I can do right now. Everything is madness at this time. Because of this video, there's not gonna be a normal stuff keeps happening tomorrow, but I hope that's acceptable. Thanks for listening. I'm on various socials. I have merch store. I have a Patreon. Your support helps a lot. I hope this isn't gonna be a thing for very long. Bye-bye.